可唔可以叫做係天無絕人之路咧？雖然我手摸唔到，但係因為我總有一個辦法讀得到，我先至會對讀書有興趣。
發覺佢係用個嘴，真係完全真係好似崩潰咁樣。點解你咁樣？即使你可以讀到書，咁你又點樣去讀落去？
好幸運地有心光嘅老師去鼓勵我，佢哋準我係用嘴唇去讀，務求俾我可以跟得上課程嘅進度啦。我哋本身係喺特殊學校讀書啦，嚟到主流學校咧，咁我去問老師有冇邊啲課堂學校個安排係我唔會上㗎咁樣。咁老師俾我嘅答案就係話，唔係有咩堂你唔可以上嘅，你自己去試下上過先至睇下你自己覺得上唔上到。喺嗰一刻開始，我就知道我喺呢度應該係會有好多嘅機會俾我去接觸一啲多元化嘅事物咯。我嘅同學係其中一個我擴闊視野嘅途徑，因為佢哋接觸嘅嘢比我多好多啦，咁所以有時佢哋嘅分享都會令到我認識好多新嘅事物咯。第一志願就揀咗係中大嘅翻譯啦，同埋嗰間大學嘅社工系。3個5星星，2個5星，1個4。
雖然係辛苦，但係好開心嘅。其實我應該話好驕傲。
In this video, the model human occupation, MOHO, will be used to explore how Ziguan's occupation was motivated, patterned, and performed. We will first take a look at her volition, habituation, and performance capacity, which are the three subsystems of a person. And then we will explore how these factors ultimately interact with the environment to bring upon her current occupational adaptation. So let's start by taking a look at Ziguan's volition. Volition refers to the process by which one is motivated towards and choose what to do. It incorporates one's thoughts and feelings surrounding three elements: values, interests, and personal causation. The first element, values, is what one finds important, meaningful, and right to do, and they bind people to action because they evoke feelings of security, worthiness, and purpose. It creates a sense of obligation for one to perform in ways consistent with their own values. Ziguan believed that one should never give up and that there's always hope, so she tried her very best to overcome all the barriers. Besides, she thinks that studying prepares her to engage into the society, which is important to her, so she values every opportunity to study. The second element, interest, is what one finds enjoyable or satisfying to do. The anticipation of a positive experience creates a feeling of attraction and a preference for doing certain things. We can see that studying brings Ziguan feelings of satisfaction and confidence. It also gives her the opportunities to interact with ordinary people and to explore more. Thirdly, personal causation is about how physical, intellectual, and social abilities are assessed and one's sense of effectiveness in using them to achieve desired outcomes in life. For Ziguan, although poor eyesight and tactile sensation in her fingers stopped her from learning as others did, she was still aware and confident in utilizing her sensitive lips to aid her in learning. The thoughts and feelings related to the three aforementioned elements of volition are continuously shaped through the volitional process, which is a cycle of anticipation, choice, experience, and interpretation. In the beginning, Ziguan was aware that there was a possibility of utilizing her lips' sensitivity to replace her eyes and fingers for reading. As a result, despite the fact that no one had tried this method before, she still made the choice to utilize her sensitive lips to read, not only because she places a high value on the ability to study as other students do, but also because she is confident in utilizing her ability to study. The outcome of her choice turned out to be great, and she experienced great pleasure. With this successful experience, she realized that she is capable in making good use of her lips to read. This further promoted her self-efficacy and interest towards studying. More importantly, this motivated her to sustain this practice. So moving on, we're now going to examine the second subsystem, which is habituation. Both habits and roles are components of this subsystem. According to MOHO, habits help us to perform tasks consistently in familiar environments, and it is formed based on our roles. The benefit of habits is that they help us to act automatically, thus reserving our energy for the performance of other tasks. For example, you can see that from the pictures that Ziguan walks quite smoothly in her familiar environment despite her visual disability. Another example is that when she is in school, she can pay attention to the lectures while reading with her lips. Thus, these habits further enhances her performance in her role as a student. The second component of habituation is roles, and as we already mentioned, roles actually provide the basis for the development of habits. In Ziguan's case, her role as a student was already internalized, which means that she self-identifies as a student and performs the role-expected behaviors, such as studying and taking examinations. In the later slides, we will further explain more about how her role performance is actually interrelated with her volition and environment. Furthermore, MOHO also mentions that habits are likely needed to be reconstructed after a person suffers from a disease. In this case, we do in fact find that Ziguan's habits have been reconstructed. Normally, a visually disabled person would use the fingertips to read Braille, which is what Ziguan did in the beginning. However, this habit became dysfunctional after she found that the sensitivity of her fingers were no longer available for her to read Braille. Therefore, she reconstructed new habits for studying. That is, she tried to use her lips to read the Braille as an adaptive habit. Then she did a self-assessment to see whether the new habit was effective for compensation. If it wasn't effective, it would have been regarded as dysfunctional as well, and she would needed to have reconstructed a new habit. Fortunately for her, this new method of reading was quite suitable and thus became a new habit. Now that we know about volition and habituation, we're going to take a look at the third subsystem, which is performance capacity. Performance capacity is the ability to do things provided by the status of underlying objective physical and mental components in corresponding subjective experience, and it can be divided into three areas: physical, process, and communication skills. Beginning with physical skills, Ziguan has extremely poor eyesight and poor sensation in the fingers. However, she does have intact sensation on her lips, and she utilizes this as an asset to facilitate her learning. In terms of process skills, she has outstanding problem-solving skills, and this was exemplified from her ability to come up with a method of reading Braille with her lips. Furthermore, she also has high ability to adapt to change. She is not afraid of new challenges, and given that a safe environment is provided, she is willing to take the initiative to explore. This can be seen as she not only adapted from the transition from special school to Gingwa school, but also from the fact that she was taking the initiative to practice the use of new learning tools in anticipation of the extra challenges in university. Together, these process skills enabled her to overcome challenges set by her physical condition. Furthermore, she also has good communication skills. As seen from the video, she is someone who is open to communicating with those in her social environment, and as a result, she had established good relationships with them. The subjective experience of performance capacity will be further elaborated in the later slides. Now that we have an understanding of the three subsystems, we're going to take a turn to look at Ziguan's environment. According to MOHO, people and their environment are inseparable. So we will first examine Ziguan's environment, and then we will further explore the interaction between three subsystems and her environment. In Ziguan's social environment, there are her parents, peers, and teachers. As for her physical environment, there is her secondary school, university, examination assessment authority, as well as assistive tools for learning, such as keyboard, software, and Braille textbooks. So with the environment outlined, the next big question is, so how does Ziguan's volition, habituation, and performance capacity interact with each other and her environment? We will now highlight some of the major interactions between these elements. Each color used in the flowchart on the left will correspond to one of the three elements, and the interactions between these elements will be continuously summarized on the diagram in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Beginning with her performance capacity, Ziguan was diagnosed as having a visual problem from a very young age, and her poor tactile sensation in the fingers stopped her from using Braille as other blind people do. Fortunately, she gradually became aware that her lips were sensitive and saw the possibility of using her lips for reading, so this demonstrates an interaction between her volition and her performance capacity. So moving on, when Ziguan first tried to use her lips for reading, she received feedback from her environment. In particular, she received negative feedback from her parents, for they thought her behavior was inconsistent with the typical reading behaviors in society. On the other hand, she gained support from her school and teachers. Hence, the social environment both enhanced and reduced her motivation for lip reading. Due to her strong volition to study, Ziguan eventually made up her mind to try this novel way of reading. From then on, she started establishing the habit of lip reading to promote her occupational performance as a student. Then throughout this habituation process, Ziguan continuously received different kinds of assistance from her environment. In the physical environment, the Hong Kong Examination Assessment Authority helped her to make proper arrangements for examinations based on her special needs for lip reading. At the same time, her old special needs school also played an important role in helping with the creation of learning materials in Braille and adaptive devices, which facilitated her learning. At Ningwa Girls' School, the mainstream school which Ziguan eventually entered, provided a high level of autonomy for her to take whatever subjects she would like to study. And in terms of her social environment, she was also strongly supported by her parents, classmates, and teachers. Together, all these environmental factors continue to facilitate the performance capacity. Lastly, the interaction between the use of her skills and the physical and social environment brought upon a positive, subjective experience of performance. Having achieved good results on the DSE and being successfully admitted by the Department of Translation at CUHK, Ziguan's skill in using her lips to read was recognized. And from discovering an atypical way to study to adapting to a mainstream school, she demonstrated to herself the effectiveness of her problem-solving skills. Furthermore, her openness enabled her to build positive relationships with her classmates and teachers. As seen in the video, she expressed that she could gain insight about the world through her classmates. So the acceptance and encouragement from her teachers and classmates acknowledged her constructive communication skills. Together, these subjective experiences promoted her performance capacity and reinforced her volition, especially her self-efficacy, which enhanced her occupation performance as a student. So all in all, we can see that there are many dynamic interactions between the subsystem and environment, which ultimately produces Ziguan's occupational performance. Now that we have explored how the three subsystems interact with each other and the environment, we will conclude by seeing how these factors contribute to Ziguan's occupational identity and competence, and ultimately her occupational adaptation. To begin with, Ziguan has achieved occupational competence because she has achieved outstanding results on the DSE. This not only aligns with her values, but also provides her with a sense of satisfaction as a student. Furthermore, as she will be continuing her studies in CUHK, this will allow her to maintain a pattern of occupational participation in which she can demonstrate her competence, continue her personal growth, and achieve her desired life outcomes. In terms of her occupational identity, she identifies as a prospective university student studying translation at the CUHK, and this not only provides her with a sense of satisfaction and well-being, but also sets a future direction for her. Together, this construction of positive occupational identity and the achievement of positive occupational competence leads to the occupational adaptation for Ziguan. So this concludes our presentation. We hope that our presentation has enabled you to gain greater understanding of what MOHO is about, as well as the complexities which exist between a person, their environment, and their occupation. So thank you so much for your time. Bye!
Open up your mind and see like me. Open up your plans and damn, you're free.